Yo, food service power plant community, welcome to our second in our new series of kind of pre-recorded conversations to make sure that we can bring you consistent messages with some of our industry's awesomest leaders. Today is a gem. We have Paul Angrick with us from NexGen. He's got an unbelievable legendary career that he built at Middleby over the years, both running Wells and Pitco and then moving into a corporate role with them. And today he's the executive director of NexGen, just revered by so many in our industry. It's truly, truly, truly an honor. Before I bring Paul on, real quick, thank yous. Thank you to the team at Zumba Group, FENS Magazine, who helped make these conversations possible. Thank you for believing in positive messages and sharing authentic story. Maureen and Joe and Dave and Sam and the whole crew. And of course, the crew at Crave, Kelsey and Chelsea and Eric and the whole crew. Go check out our website, fspowerplant.com, to see all, 115 or so conversations. They're all there. We'd love for you to join us there. And don't forget, these conversations, we've got leaders sharing their story, giving their insights, the tips that help them grow in both their careers and their lives. Take some notes, like I will be. Grab a pen, grab a paper, take some notes. Paul inevitably has insights from his story that will be beneficial to you. So let me encourage you that way. Listen, let's go find him. Paul Angrick, welcome, brother. Welcome to FSPN.
Well, Jason, thanks so much for having me this morning. It's a wonderful opportunity. I feel very privileged.
I feel privileged. I'm so glad that we get to have you on and just really get to know you a little bit better and the lessons learned and the insights and the quotes and all those fun things that we'll dive into. You've had really an unbelievable career, and today get to lead NexGen and with your members that you all are collaborating to do wonderful things for them in the industry. Do you mind, for anyone that doesn't know your storied career, sharing part of it with us?
Sure. Even though it's expanded over 40 plus years, I'll give you the Cliff Note version of it. Otherwise, I'll take up way too much time. I came into the industry in 1983, coming out of grad school. Prior to that, I was an accountant for 4 years and quickly learned that I didn't want to be an accountant the rest of my life. It was just something that I didn't have the passion that I need to have to be successful at. So I got into a family-run business called Integ Industries in 1983. Moved that business at the time down to South Carolina, where it resided in the late 80s. And after that career, I went over to my first real career change was in 1990, where I went to Shreveport, Louisiana, and worked for Frymaster. And they were under the Well-Built when it was still known as Well-Built before I went through a series of ownership changes. And I had the opportunity to manage. My first P&L job was running Dean Yorst Range out in Southern California, which was under the umbrella, and had the privilege of working for two great guys, Dave Mostel and Chuck Labanik at the time, who were very influential in my career, giving me my breakthrough moment from a career standpoint to run a business. And I was in my early to mid 30s at the time. Fast forward, we relocated both businesses to other locations from within the Well-Built family of companies. I had the opportunity, I got a phone call from a longtime friend, Jeff Rodenbaugh, who was running specialty equipment companies at the time, and my dear longtime friends, Wayne Best, and they talked me into coming over to run Wells Bloomfield. Fast forward, after running a series of companies under the specialty equipment companies, we were sold to United Technologies, who was eventually selling off their divisions from within the restaurant equipment industry to, and Middleby picked us up, and the companies I was managing, and working for Salim Basul and Tim Fitzgerald, and having the privilege of working with guys like Steve Spittle and John Peruccio and James Poole. I had a great run and retired in the early part of 2017 for personal reasons. Then I got a phone call from the group at NexGen saying, Paul, Jeff Rodenbaugh was running NexGen. He was one of the founders of NexGen. He was the original executive director. So I kind of followed Jeff around a little bit within the industry. And they called me up and told me, Paul, you're too young to retire. You stink at golf. You don't have many friends. So come help us run this business. So with that, I've been aligned with some phenomenal dealers within the NexGen family. It's just been a great run overall. So been very blessed.
Well, that's amazing. I believe half of that. You might stink at golf, but the friend part, I'm not buying into. You have so many people along the way. What a cool story. Jeff, I remember Jeff's name because maybe it's nephew Eric joined Bar Green. I got to know Eric when he joined about 10 years ago or so, and now he's in Wyoming, of course.
Yes.
That's really
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
I love it. Full circle. Tell me, okay, so in NexGen, in the role that you have with your members, tell me, did the role surprise you? Are you loving what you're doing? And what is it that you love kind of leading NexGen?
Yeah. Well, it was a pivot from what I was doing previously. I was running and designing and manufacturing products for the restaurant equipment industry, selling through the dealerships, much like the NexGen organization comprises of. And it's I'm not designing and manufacturing anymore. I'm on the other side of the table. I'm working with dealers, but I also maintain my relationships with the manufacturers that I was part of for the vast majority of my career. And with that, I've been able to maintain my my relationships on the manufacturing side. I was part of the board of directors from I think 1999 to 2011 on the board of directors of NAFM. So I've got a plethora of friends on that side. Had the privilege of being president of NAFM, working with the Deirdre Flynn's of the world. I've had a great run on that side. But now on the dealer side, I get to keep those same relationships, but now I've forged a whole new series of relationships working with the 5 Next members. So it's I do a variety of things, but I'm not manufacturing and I'm not distributing and I'm not trying to sell anything. As I tell people today, I don't make anything, I don't sell anything. I just help both sides, our manufacturing and supplier community, work with our membership. It's been very rewarding on that side.
Oh, I think it sounds like you get to just help a lot of different constituents all win and feel good about the experience you all have together.
That's exactly what keeps me motivated and enjoying what I do. It's I've had a great run over 40 plus years now, and I'm continuing to enjoy every day. So,
gosh, I love it.
As I tell people, I've never felt like I've ever really had to work. It's not a job. I just enjoy what I do.
I don't know of many greater gifts than, we all work, but to love what you do, we all have a job, right? A career, a path, something that we do to earn income. When you love it, I feel like that's just one of the top 5 greatest gifts any person can have, is to feel like it's not work. It really is. It doesn't mean I don't hustle, and it doesn't mean I'm, not stumbling and learning all these things along the way, but it really does inherently feel like a place of joy in what I do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my tail's wagging every day I wake up. So it's all good.
That's so great. What a great way to describe that. Okay. You've been leading for a long time in your various roles along your career journey.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone out there watching who is a leader, or anyone who has a desire to move into a leadership role and is asking themselves, what qualities might best serve me, or should I, build this capacity for as I want to move into a leadership position? What are the qualities you found over time that are most impactful for a leader?
Well, I look at really 5 key cornerstones to that answer. One is, I think, first and foremost, you have to focus on the people. You got to the people you're working with are ultimately the greatest assets of the business. It's not the machinery, it's not the software. Your greatest asset are your people, and ultimately they're going to make it happen. Right? One person can't make things happen within a business. So if you work on taking care of your people, recruiting the right people, focusing on developing those people, it's vitally important. I think also as a leader, I think you also have to set a culture and an importance around maintaining a high level of integrity and ethics, not cutting corners in those 2 areas. I think is vitally important. I think the third thing that I would focus on and think's important is a clear and concise communication reign. Management and the people that have to effectively execute it, the plan and the strategy and the tactical side. I think you also, as a business leader, you have to show, and part of that is, as you develop people, you have to be willing to take risks. If you're going to grow your business, and show me a business that's successful today that somewhere along the line, the management team or the ownership team didn't have to take some significant risk. And I think, that's vitally important. I think that's also developing the culture, culture of, risk taking. And then I guess the fifth and the final point is just empowering the people. It comes back to people again, and encouraging them to do their job, to encourage them to be strategic and think as thinkers and as innovators, because ultimately, the mindset of many is better than one. And I just think, having a collaborative effort and letting people do their job and let them run with it, you're going to be much better off as an organization. So those are the 5 things that I would think you want to focus on as a business and
Paul,
as
it's
a leader.
gold. I'm sitting here writing, thinking, gosh, I hope I'm engaging my team these ways and trying these things and everything that we're doing. By the way, everyone watching, pure gold. I hope you're taking notes. Boom, like I am. I mean, what a gift to get these insights. Thanks for sharing, Paul. In terms of people, you've had a lot of people you've worked with over the years. Do you who supported you and got to mentor you along the way?
Hmm.
And you get to listen to a lot of constituents in your world. What is it that and I know that there's people that you get to mentor whose lives you live into and you speak to and you just get to listen and be an ear for. What's the value for you, just generically, would you say, maybe in having a mentor out there in your life?
Well, I look at the three as I divide up my career on the manufacturing side into really 3 stages. And I look at my first stage where I was in the well-built system. I worked for some great companies. And as I mentioned earlier on, the Dave Mostillas and Chuck Labanix rolled the dice and allowed me to run a significant business within the well-built family. Gave me, they took a risk there, as I alluded to earlier. That was one of their risks that they took, putting a younger person in a chair to run a significant operation. And they encouraged me. They taught me to be very strategic and very tactical and thoughtful on what you do, being mindful of the people in the process, because it's always very easy to run over people in the process. So having that level of empathy for those around you and using the assets you have from a human resource capital. And then I went over to specialty under Jeff Rodenbach and Wayne Best. If you know those two, they're great personalities, very different personalities, but Jeff allowed me to run these businesses. He trusted me. He didn't micromanage. Getting back to one of my other five cornerstone pieces I alluded to earlier, was allowing people to do their job and let them be strategic and tactical. And he allowed me to do that. He gave me a lot of rein. He allowed me to take on additional responsibilities and manage a series of companies under his envelope of companies. And then working for Salim and Tim, Middleby is a phenomenal organization. Salim's mantra was always reinventing yourself, and the status quo wasn't acceptable almost on a month-to-month basis, and you had to always continue to think outside the box and push that envelope. So all 3 of them were vitally important to me, and I learned a lot of different mentorship skills, if you will, from each of those 3 categories of my life.
Gosh, we really do end up becoming the people we surround ourselves with in so many ways. We see how they engage. We see the way they take risks. They empower all the things you mentioned. We foster it, and build it into what we are. And then, of course, all the people that lean into you and say, Paul, can we have coffee for a little bit of guidance? Or can I bounce an idea off you? And you get to bring those tools. What a gift where just these ideas are passed down from team to person to team to person, etc. I love it. One of the things we always talk about, it's easy to look at our leaders and forget that every one of us has challenge that we go through. There's an obstacle or a setback, or there's just something that we have to learn in. Anything in your world along the way, was there a challenge that you walked through that really helped kind of teach you what you were made of and lead you in growth in your journey?
I don't know if I classify it as a challenge as much as one of the bigger issues that I was faced early on was I managed a couple of businesses that we had to physically shut down the facility and move. And here you are, you've been working with these people. In some cases, these employees have multiple generations of people within the organization, right? And it's a family. And when you reach corporate decisions, if you will, to relocate the facility, and you're costing a lot of people a lot of jobs and families the hardships that come with the plant shutdowns, what you have to think of is the longer scope. On the other end, you're creating new jobs, you're creating new opportunities for people's personal growth and development. It's really, it's very hard for me early on in my career when I had to shut down a few facilities and move them, because you really just wrapped up with the people you've been surrounded with for several years. But you also have to look at the bigger picture the health of the business in some cases, but more importantly, you're creating new opportunities on the other end. So that's, it comes back to people, because people run, are the business. And you might have all the technology and all this IP you want as a business, but you got to have the right people to help drive it. And that's, and that's why it was always very difficult for me from a challenge standpoint to come to that resolution that I'm creating as many opportunities as I'm taking away on the other end, if not more.
Well, thanks for being vulnerable with that. If it's always hard when you're transitioning and you are so much about the people, there's the hope inside that in some way, as hard as it might be, that there's new opportunities exist for people that you're moving out of town from, and certainly creating and fostering a new community and experience for so many people to get to live in the goodness that you're helping foster from a cultural perspective. And so I'm glad you're able to see the yin and the yang. That'd be a lot. That'd be a lot.
Yeah, wasn't easy early on, that's for sure.
Yeah, I bet. You mentioned that in your work, you wake up every day and your tail is wagging. So let's think this. We all have lives outside of work. We all get to connect via our careers in the food service industry. That's how you and I met. But we all have things outside of this space of our lives that kind of charge our batteries. What are some of the things for you that fill your cup?
Well, besides my immediate family and friends that are, it's a big part of my life. It's been able to surround myself with really great people on so many fronts, both work-related and on a personal level. I do love to travel. I traveled a lot in my career, both domestically and internationally. Health permitting, I'm still going to travel a lot. Some of the areas that I'd like to go down to Machu Picchu or the Galapagos Islands. I'd like to visit more national parks. I haven't been able to see as many as I would like. We got a beautiful country here to see, and so I'm excited to do that. A big part of my day is seeing my 11-year-old grandson grow up and become a little person. So that's near and dear for me.
Love that, Paul. Beautiful. You got a lot of things bringing you life, my friend.
Yep.
You mentioned your grandson, and certainly something to be grateful for is to get to watch him grow up, the friends and family you mentioned who are so important. Anything in particular you find yourself grateful for?
Well, I'm very grateful that, again, I have a phenomenal family and support, friends, got relatively good health, little aches and pains in the morning, but at my age, that comes with the territory. But I'm grateful I've been very healthy overall. And, I look at every day as a new chapter, and I'm just trying to find new things to do and meet new people that will broaden my horizons, and I learn from every day. So I like to be around people a whole lot smarter than me and that have different interests than I do, so I can learn from them. So that's kind of my personal goal in life.
Oh, I love it. I think our buddy Rob Connolly said when he was on, this desire to learn and a love of learning really is our fountain of youth for all of us. None of us, we always can wake up excited if you love learning, because there's always so much to kind of learn and lean into and all these things. So I love that's one of yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things we talk about in the Food Service Power Plant Network is the importance of creating pride. We all want to feel proud about who we are, the job we do. It's really hard to cultivate energy if we feel like we're doing something halfway, or
Yep.
I did okay at that, or I didn't try that hard. We all want to cultivate pride in what we do. As you look back at your career, anything in particular you feel quite proud of?
Yeah, I would say probably, maybe it comes back to, some level of success is the fact that I've been able to identify and recruit, in some cases, some real talented people. And when they're young in their career and you see them develop, and you've had a few of them on your show, and it's very, very rewarding to see those people turn into successful and happy constituents of the food service equipment industry. It's a wonderful industry we're in, and it's all about relationships, as many people talk about. I'm a full supporter of that, and be able to surround yourself and be able to see, particularly, again, the younger people develop in their careers and have a part of their development process is very rewarding and very, I get a lot of personal satisfaction out of it. So
I love it. There's many who I know.
kind of like seeing your kids grow up being good citizens and having successful lives. That's the way I would draw a parallel.
Yeah, it's amazing to me, Paul. One thing I love is just how much heart you bring into what you do. And I know there are a lot of people who say that you are the reason for their success, or a significant part of the reason for their success or their opportunity. And so as someone who really has felt your way through, this element of pride and connecting with people, it's personal. And I love that. I think that's great when it's not a work world I have and there's not a personal life I have. They all sort of bleed into one another in one way or another. And I certainly have a personal life outside of that, but my work is personal, and the people I connect with, it's personal, and the ways we get to serve are personal. And you really, really do live that out. It's a gift for many.
Try.
Favorite quote, and I know this can change over time, and you can have multiple if you want, but is there any quotes that you've hung on to or that you've just really loved?
Yeah, there's two that I used to have them on my whiteboard in the office. I would change them out occasionally, and I try to make my, at that point, some of my favorite quotes would tie back into the business a little bit and how you approach business. One is a Nelson Mandela, and it's I'm trying to think aloud now. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail. And this comes back to tying into being a risk taker. And you're going to learn a lot more, and you'll be better off long term by trying and failing. And you just learn from those failures, and you'll prosper from it. That Nelson Mandela quote is one. And also another one would be Ralph Waldo Emerson. It says, "Go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path, and leave a trail." And again, it's being creative, being innovative. It's reinventing yourself, if I can use that phrase again, and not, and there's a lot more to be gained, both on a personal level. I think there's a lot more gratification when you can blaze your own trail and maybe be a little different and be maybe scorned upon in the process. But at the end of the day, when you're successful, there's no better feeling.
It's easy to, when you're blazing your own trail, doing something that hasn't been done, it's easy, you say, maybe some people scorned upon at points because they're like, well, that doesn't fit the mold of how we do things. So who is this person to think they can do it differently or try this new way? And you do have to have an element of just belief in yourself and some tough skin to say, no, I believe in what's happening here, even if it looks unfamiliar to the rest of you.
Yep, I fully agree. And when I look at some of the risks and there's a lot of failures in that process, right?
Yeah.
But to ultimately win, you've got to be a risk taker, and you following the norm is not going to get you there. And to have the attitude, and we've all seen people who come across saying, we've tried that, it didn't work attitude, and okay, let's think of it a little bit differently. It's a different era, it's a different whatever, and to keep trying and maybe reworking the approach, opposed to just saying we've been there, done that, doesn't work attitude. To me that doesn't resonate. So that's why it's really important to encourage people to think outside the box and motivate them and encourage them to be key drivers of change.
Yeah, I think it's a gift and real wisdom when people don't hold on to their previous beliefs too long. It's easy to have thought something 5 years ago and say, no, sorry, I made my mind up 5 years ago on this. But to always be open to, you're right, the times changed. We're in a new world today than we were pre-COVID, let's say 5 years ago, whatever that is. And so I'm open to things being different today. Let's hash it out. Let's figure it out. Not, sorry, I made this decision 20 years ago or 5 years ago, and this is who I am, and this is where we're going to be.
Yeah.
Great insights, boy.
Wonderful.
Okay, one of my favorite questions, it's often our last because we all define success differently. I have a feeling some of what you've talked about already is probably how you look at it. When you look at your career still thriving, and for anyone looking, trying to figure out what success looks like for them, how do you, Paul Angrick, define success in your journey?
Yeah. And I think this also looks at when you look at people, whether it be people coming out of college or people already in a profession. I think the key for me to measure somebody to be successful, or even myself, if you can, when you follow your dreams and you're successful in your dreams and you achieve your goals, there's no better feeling. Nobody's going to tell you what to do in life, but if you have a dream and this is what you want to do, and when you get to the finish line and you win, there's not a better feeling in the world. So to me, that's success. It's not the bank account, it's not the house, it's not the car. It's all about, again, waking up and having your tail wag in the morning, right? And, that's why I look at myself being successful. It's none of the other stuff. It's just the fact that I wake up and go to bed every day, satisfied with what I've done for the day and what I look to do for the next day. So life's good.
Paul, I love it, man. You are living something that I've worked hard to continue to cultivate, where it feels somewhat like play. And over time, I've gotten better at it. It feels way different than when I started for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's perspective. Maybe it's just time. But I think stories like yours and hearing you share the way the experience has been for you, how you wake up in the morning, how you go to bed at night, and the feelings you feel, it gives everyone out there hope in what's possible. And because I know that's not true for everyone. And so, the encouragement for anyone watching is, if that's not your experience, my complete belief is that what Paul's describing in his world, his reality, can be true for all of us. And maybe that's within the role that you have now and the world that you're in. And you just, maybe there's elements of learning how to do it a little differently, or having boundaries, or setting goals in a different way, or whatever that might be. Maybe it's outside of the current role you're in. Maybe you I had a call from a buddy the other day. He had been in one role in the industry. He played a particular role. And almost 5 years ago, I was somewhere. He called me. He said, "Can we have coffee?" And we had coffee. And he's like, "I'm in this, but I want to do this." And I was like, "Brother, you go. Make it happen." He called me this week. He just took a new role within the industry. That's unbelievable. And he lived it. He did it. And so maybe it's just setting goals for yourself, sitting down for an hour at a coffee shop and dreaming. Paul used the word dream. Go dream. And where you are now doesn't have to be where you are tomorrow. And I think all of us have the potential to live a career journey where we wake up in the morning and our tail is wagging. And Paul, thanks for being an embodiment of that for us. Okay, my favorite part. Paul, you mentioned one of the things you've loved most, and one of the components in terms of what you've gotten to do in the industry that brings you the most pride is getting to find people, invest in them, make a difference in their lives. We'll get to watch them, kind of like your kids you mentioned, grow in the industry and really grow into their dreams. And we like to do at the end, we end with encouraging words. And you've made an impactful difference on a lot of people. And I happen to know who some of them were, and I reached out ahead of time and they wanted to say, "Paul, here's what you've meant to me." So I'm going to start with our mutual friend, Brad Wasserstrom. Brad says, "I'm not sure how long ago I met Paul, but I'm guessing it was closer to 20 years than 10. He was working for Pitco, and I was working on a customer issue for Wasserstrom. We decided to meet in person, and I think we were at a FIDA conference or something similar, having a sidebar discussion. I don't remember much about who the customer was or what the issue was, but what I do remember is distinctly walking away from that discussion feeling like Paul was a straight shooter who was easy to have a conversation with and could be taken at his word. All these years later, I can say all that remains true. We have spent hours upon hours in conversations about a wide range of topics, from the industry to how great Ohio State football is. His words, not mine. I have never once doubted his sincerity or his honesty. And even if I wasn't in alignment with his view, his reasoning was always well-founded. Paul is also a food service industry guy. He has literally given decades of his life to the industry. I frequently tell people that the highest compliment one of our company's associates can pay me is when they bring a family member or a close friend into our company. It tells me without words what they think about what we do and how we do it and where we're headed. Paul's son Josh is in our industry now, working for Middleby after starting as a rep in the Arizona market. That says a lot to me about what Paul thinks about our industry and where we're headed. I am lucky to call Paul not just the director of our buying group or a trusted ear on industry issues, but also a close friend who I think has finally learned not to hate on the Ohio State. Brad, thanks for sharing. Beautiful words, man. Our next friend is our buddy Eric Ellingson with Bart Ellingson. The Foodservice Power Plant project was forged and founded in one of the industry's darkest moments with a mission to lift up the collective spirit of this industry we love. It was about finding hope and understanding in other people's perspectives. In that, a major focus has been on the people and personalities that make this industry worth celebrating and believing in. Because of that, I was initially surprised Paul had not been on the show before now. But on reflection, I think I know the reason why. Paul's greatest gift to the industry and the people in it is that it's never about Paul. Paul seems to derive the most joy when he doesn't have to leave the therapist chair because his patients, from factory to dealer and from president to salesperson, seem to leave a conversation with Paul with the answer that was within the entire time. As a frequent patient of Paul's, I always leave a discussion with him with more perspective and gratitude for our industry. Paul is a self-generating power plant in himself. Eric, wow, man, you should write a book or something, brother. That's beautiful. Our friend Deirdre Flynn shared a few words, Paul. I've had the opportunity to work with Paul and learn from him for more than 20 years. He's passionate about the industry. He has mentored, supported, grown, and championed countless others to excel, all while making significant contributions to the industry. If you ask me to describe Paul in one sentence, he is one of the kindest, most sincere people you could ever have the pleasure of knowing. So genuine, so sweet, and so fun to hang out with. We're lucky to have Paul Angrick in our industry and in our lives. Deirdre, beautiful. Lastly, we have someone who I know is so important to you, our friend Steve Spittle of Middleby, who you've mentioned in this conversation. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for Paul. I first met him when he was the president of Wells it was in Reno, and I became their rep for the first time. It was the first factory I visited back in 2003. We just kind of hit it off. He's a big sports fan with 2 sons, and we bonded over that despite the fact that I'm an Ohio State fan, and he's definitely not. A fun memory was from a Wells event back in December 2006. Ohio State was playing Florida in the national championship. I was with Paul. I gave him 14 points and said the Buckeyes are still going to cover. The Buckeyes got crushed. Paul started blowing up my phone, not realizing that I was in the hospital with my wife as we were having our first child. Our relationship really began friendly and fun and has just continued. When he came to Pitco, he offered me an opportunity to join him there and really changed my career trajectory in my life. I became the regional, the VP of sales, and understanding buying groups and the players and the nuances of our industry, Paul knew so well. I got to be in his shadow, and I just learned so much from him. From 2011 to 14, I was coming up as a sales leader, and he was so gracious to let me learn from him professionally, as well as welcome me as a personal friend. Fast forward to today. My kids know Paul. My wife knows and loves Paul. He is a huge part of my personal and professional life. And there are few people I've met who have such a wonderful and kind way about him. He is such a special person. And I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for Paul Angrick. I owe him just so much. Steve!
Wow.
Beautiful, beautiful. By the way, Brad and Steve, we're rooting for both of your teams. We hope it goes great. This week, we know you have another big game. I guess it's tonight. Paul, as you define success and pride, you've lived it. Much to be proud of, my friend. Really, really beautiful. Yeah. Well, we're all fortunate. I know you sharing your story today and being who you are is going to affect a lot of lives in really positive ways. So thanks for being you and giving us time.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful experience, Jason, and you do you're a great steward for the industry. So thank you.
I love getting to do it. Stories like yours make it easy and really fun. Listen, everyone, undoubtedly, this affected you in a positive way. I hope you take some of Paul's words, his insights. Hopefully you made some notes. I'm trying to find my note page, and apply it in your world. Create a dream. Set a vision statement. Call someone who you think can offer some insights and guidance into your world. Listen, we're both Paul and I, Deirdre, Eric, Brad, Steve, we're all rooting for you out there. And know that you can reach out anytime to connect. Wishing you the best, whatever phase of the journey you're in. Hope it's wonderful. Remember, you're stronger than you realize. And we'll see you again soon. Paul, thanks again, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, brother.